12 teams for Ineffa, let's get straight into it with his Aoife team. I'm a fan of his design, but most people agree that prior to 5.8, he was a little underwhelming in combat. Not anymore. Aoife is obviously tailored towards Electro-charged. Ineffa turning it into Lunar-charged breathes some much needed life into his teams. Farina takes the Hydro slot, and you could either prioritise meta and go with Yelan in the last slot, or get Aura on in there if you like their dynamic in the story. Ineffa gives him Elemental Mastery from a passive, so it's a strong synergy for him. I'm doing a Welkin giveaway in my Discord too, by the way. There'll be 10 winners and each one gets to choose either a Welkin for Genshin, Supply Pass in Star Rail, or a Daily Pass for whichever gacha you play the most. My sponsors Loot Bar were kind enough to provide them, and they said if it goes well, they're happy to fund a giveaway every month. We take those. If you've seen my other videos, you know Loot Bar are a top-up website that do Genesis crystals and Welkins up to 25% cheaper than in-game. To be honest, most people I know that top up, myself included, we only top up with Loot Bar because we've been doing it for years and there's been no issues with our accounts. It's fully trustworthy. Check the Trustpilot reviews if you want to, because we have over 20,000 positive reviews, and all you need is your UID and server, no login details. I've left a link in the description if you want to check them out, and there's also a link to my Discord for the giveaway, so make sure to join it if you want to win a Welkin. Nuvalet's getting another buff with the release of Ineffa, so maybe now he'll finally be usable. Prior to 5.1, people running with Farina, Kazuha and Zhongli. Shalonen in 5.1 replaced the comfort of Zhongli's shield with healing, big buffs and even more resistance shred. C Lally in 5.3 gave us a bit of that interruption to resistance back while still retaining the scroll buff as well as her own resistance shred. Escoffia in 5.6 gave us another source of damage, healing and her resistance shred. Ineffa doesn't have the shred, but she does have big off-field damage, which makes this team as strong, and some have even argued stronger than current Nuvalet teams. The shield has value too for providing him with some much needed resistance to interruption. For those that prefer to invest horizontally, collecting more characters as opposed to keeping their roster small and obtaining constellations, Ineffa is going to be a solid addition to your Nuvalet teams. With all these new characters for Nuvalet, I don't imagine it'll be raining in Fontaine anytime soon. Ineffa having a vacuum on her arm is fitting because it means you can play with other characters this suck, like Barbara. All jokes aside, while Barbara definitely isn't one of the strongest characters in the game, she is a character we all get for free early on. If you're a newer player trying to build a team, and you'll be glad to know you can play them with Fischl and Sing Cho. Barbara on field, spamming normal attacks while holding the craftable weapon Hakushin Ring to buff the team's Electro and Hydro damage is going to be a solid team, and to be honest, probably one that's strong enough for endgame content too. If you want to take the team up a gear, then Kogumi's another character getting buffed with Ineffa. Mono Hydro has always been one of my favourite teams in the game, but there's a flexibility to it in that you can drop a unit and put in a flex to fit whichever meta the game's currently running with. Having an Electro unit, especially one from Nodcry to break in the new region, is nice for Kogumi. When she first came out, people weren't too happy about her, but I'd say after Yelan, there's a strong argument that she's aged better than any of the 2.x units. I do want to point out that Kokomi can't crit, so she won't be contributing much to the Lunar charge damage, but she still has value to the team. Nalu's another unit that appreciates a new teammate. Basically, you press Nalu's skill and you're faced with an option. Press the skill a few more times to turn her into a Bloom support, or press normals to give a Hydro infusion on her normals and make her a DPS. When she launched in 3.1, no one used the DPS side of the kit because even though we had Yelan and Kazuha, we didn't have many good sustain options for her. She scales off HP so can't use Bennett, and when Farina replaced Yelan, it meant Zhongli was less viable because he didn't heal to counter Farina's bleed. Shalonen changed that and gave us our first genuinely strong Nalu DPS team. Escoffia paired with C Lally gave us our second, and now Ineffa's given us our third. It's nice to have different team archetypes for our DPSs, so Nalu getting another is appreciated. Mualani's another Hydro DPS that appreciates another team archetype. For a long time, she was only used in vape teams, and while they are her best teams, Escoffia give her another option. Just like with Nalu, Ineffa gives her a third archetype for Lunar charge teams. There are two big drawbacks of running Mualani in vape teams, despite it being her best archetype. Firstly, other Hydro units can remove a Pyro Aura. Let's say you run Farina for example, she removes the Pyro Aura and now Mualani doesn't vape. It's a shame because you want the Hydro Resonance for the extra HP that Mualani's damage scales off. It puts you in a situation where you have to choose one or the other. Secondly, triggering 4-piece scroll can be awkward in vape teams. You won't have that issue with Ineffa. Drop Farina's skill, switch into Shalonen, then Ineffa, then Mualani. It's less of a Mualani hypercarry team, but that doesn't make the team worse. If anything, it gives her another use, so she might get played a bit more. Switching up the elements, C0's getting some much needed love. A lot of people call C0 their biggest regret pull because of how little they use him and how weak he is when they do. To those people, I say do not cry because he's coming off the bench in 5.8. The Shalonen and Farina pair is strong enough to carry most DPSs though, and Ineffa makes it so that the team has genuine synergy. C0 is infamous for his long burst duration, but Ineffa has 20 seconds of uptime on her skill, so it's not an issue for her. It's worth remembering C0's damage scales off elemental mastery too. With Ineffa giving him some more from her passive, that makes their synergy even stronger. C0 gets in play in Big 2025. It'll be like Ineffa left. Side note, you can use Clorand in the same team, probably use Yolano the Farina too. I don't have Clorand though, so that's why she didn't make an appearance in this video. To any Chaska mains undecided on whether or not to pull Ineffa, you could say they have one leg in and one leg out. Get it? You'll be glad to know that they work together. You could use the tried and tested combo of Farina and Bennett. The elemental mastery buff from Ineffa will be useful for Chaska here because she's going to be triggering a bunch of different reactions. For those that don't like being restricted to a circle though, dropping Bennett for a Scoffia isn't anywhere near as punishing as you might think. I get the logic in that a Scoffia only wants Hydro or Cryo units and this team has 2 units that don't fit that requirement, but she's such a good unit that it doesn't even matter. To be honest, I think Chaska is one of the most underrated units in the game, and one of the only things holding her back is more options for teammates, but Ineffa's got her covered there. Just in time as well with her having a rerun. There was a point when Alhaitham was considered one of the best DPSs in the game, and even though he's not top tier anymore, he's still strong. Ineffa makes it so that he's even stronger. I recommend going double Hydro because you have to remember it's a Lunar Charge team. We want Hydro and Electro on the enemy, but too much Dendro will wipe it. This team's going to have a bit of everything with Quicken, Lunar Charged and Hyper Bloom as well as 4 different damage dealers, so it'll probably see Alhaitham get played a bit more. Another unit that wants to get played more is Arlecchino. Since Mawika's got a massive nuke on her burst and is doing charge attacks for 100k and upwards, people don't play Arlecchino as much. Ineffa is an unlikely unit that benefits Arlecchino more than Mawika though. She's taken her out of that dusty house and outside to see those northern lights. Arlecchino applies a decent amount of pyro, but not so much that you completely wipe the Hydro. As long as Hydro exists on the enemy, Ineffa can put Lunar Charged on them and use it to trigger a passive, which is where most of damage comes from. The shield is useful too for survivability. Obviously Arlecchino can't receive healing from her teammates, just a burst, but you don't want to be relying on getting it back up after using it, so a shield at the simple press of her skill is some nice quality of life. Clevy could have done with one of those. I know a lot of the fanbase appreciate some Cave content, so you'll be pleased to know he's getting some love. I think it goes without saying there are much better on-fielders here, but the idea isn't to push the ceiling as high as possible. It's simply to have Cave on field and not feel like the team's weaker than a Wuthering Waves livestream. In terms of how you'd build Cave in Ineffa teams, I know the Flower Claymore looks nice on him, but it can be difficult getting his burst back, so I recommend Fav. I recommend Deepwood too, because there are going to be a lot of blooms and even hyper blooms with Ineffa triggering them. Building energy recharge on him isn't too punishing either, given the fact Ineffa gives him the elemental mastery he loses back from a passive anyway. Also, run 2 Hydro units, probably Yelan and Xingqiu, so you have enough Hydro application for Lunar Charged uptime. Not the strongest Ineffa team, but definitely one of Cave's strongest. For our last team, we have Sayu, but you can use Mizuki if you have her. I gave Sayu Sacrificial Greatsword for uptime on her skill, and 4-piece Viridescent Venera to shred the elements. A lot of the team's damage is carried by Ineffa and Farina, but let's be honest, most teams these days are carried by broken supports. Relative to your other options, this team wasn't as much of a meme team as it looks on paper. I wouldn't be bringing Sayu into Stygian Onslaught, but she'll be enough for Spiral Abyss. For a score out of 10, I'd give Ineffa an 8.5. As you've just seen, she provides meta characters with flexibility and options, and also brings less meta characters closer to the meta. I just put out guides for Flynn's and Lauma, and if it's not out already, I'll be doing one for Ino soon too. Just a reminder to join the Welkin giveaway in my Discord if you're interested, and take it easy.